Hello and welcome to my presentation on how TD Bank successfully implemented a data governance program. I'm Beena Bongale, Manager of Data Governance and Security at TD Bank Canada. Before I get into talking about our data governance journey, I want to thank you all for attending this session because obviously you know or care about data governance, which is really a great start because I didn't have a clue as to what data governance is until I got tasked with implementing it. For the past decade, I've been primarily focused on risk management and information security, and data governance being in the realm of information security, it was just a logical turn for me. A little note. The contents and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely mine and not of TD or any of its affiliates. When my boss gave me a team and asked me to implement data governance enterprise-wide, I went straight to my desk and Googled what is data governance. And within seconds, I was drowning in a sea of definitions. I looked at a few and they all seemed like good, accurate descriptions of what data governance is, but none of them could tell me how to implement it. After a few hours of research, I realized I was still struggling to decide where to begin. If you are just starting out your data governance journey, then don't be naive like me and Google what is data governance and how to implement it. That is because there is no one-size-fits-all or a cookie-cutter strategy that you can implement. Your organization is not implementing data governance for the greater good or because the government is asking for it. Well, obviously GDPR and all other privacy laws are a lot on our minds at the moment, and data governance helps in achieving a lot of the privacy regulations. But you got to look at what is your organization trying to achieve. What is its corporate strategy? Are you trying to increase profits or decrease costs or move into new markets or maybe even exit markets? How is your data going to support that or even stop your organization from achieving it? All organizations need to plan how they use data for, so that it is handled consistently throughout the business to support business outcomes. It's a cliche of modern data management that data is a business asset. But data that just sits there is only a cost center, requiring maintenance without providing any business benefits. This means that organizations who successfully do this consider the who, what, when, how, where, and why of data to not only ensure security and compliance, but to extract value from all the information collected and stored across the business, improving business performance. It's all about how you handle the data collected within your business. Along my data governance journey, I became a big fan of think big, start small, and solve real data issues. Hence, I would define data governance as it's a set of principles and practices that ensure high quality through the complete life cycle of your data. According to the Data Governance Institute (DGI), it is a practical and actionable framework to help a variety of data stakeholders across any organization identify and meet their information needs. The DGI maintains that businesses don't just need systems for managing data. They need a whole system of rules with processes and procedures to make sure those rules are followed consistently every single working day. Where did we begin? At TD, our data governance framework comprises of three things. We have some data policies, we have some processes, and we have some roles and responsibilities. Our first order of business was to outline a formal data governance policy on how data processing and management will be carried out to ensure organizational data is accurate, accessible, consistent, and protected. It covers who is responsible for information under various circumstances and specifies what procedures should be used to manage it. In addition, it incorporates risk management and data ethics principles to reduce potential business problems from the use of data. The important thing about our data policy is that it is a living document, which means it is flexible and can be quickly changed in response to changing needs. It articulates the principles, practices, and standards our organizational leaders have determined necessary to ensure the organization has high quality data. That is, its data assets are protected. We established a policy forming group called a Data Governance Committee, and it's primarily made up of business executives and other data owners. Next, we worked on writing data quality processes. Step 1 was definition. We defined the business goals for data quality improvement, data owners, stakeholders, impacted business processes, and data rules. To give you an idea, let's take an example of customer data. Ensure all customer records are unique and contain accurate information, that is addresses, phone numbers, etc., consistently data across multiple systems. Then state the data owner. It could be the sales vice president, for example. Next, identify the stakeholders. They could be in finance, marketing, and production. Next, look at the impacted business processes. It could be systems like order entry, invoicing, fulfillment. Then state the data rules. Example could be rule number 1 states customer name and address together should be unique. And rule 2 could state all addresses should be verified against an approved address reference database. Step number 2 was assessment. Then we assess the existing data against rules specified in the definition step. We assess data against multiple dimensions such as accuracy of key attributes, completeness of all required attributes, consistency of attributes across multiple data sets, timelines of data, etc. Depending on the volume and variety of data and the scope of data quality project in each enterprise, we perform qualitative and/or quantitative assessment using some profiling tools. This is the stage to assess existing policies, data access, data security, adherence to specific industry standards, guidelines, etc. So for example, let's say assess the percentage of customer records that are unique with name and address together, or percentage of non-null values in key attributes and such. Step number 3 is analysis. Analyze the assessment results on multiple fronts. One area to analyze is the gap between data quality business goals and current data. Another area to analyze is the root cause for inferior data quality, if that's the case. Another example would be if customer addresses seem inaccurate by more than the business defined goal, find out what is the root cause. Are the order entry application data validations the problem, or the reference address data inaccurate? If the customer names are inconsistent between order entry system and financial systems, what is causing those inconsistencies? Step number 4, improvement. Design and develop improvement plans based on prior analysis. The plans should comprehend timeframes, resources, and costs involved. Some examples could be, first is like maybe all application modifying addresses must validate against selected address reference database. Or maybe customer name can only be modified via order entry application. Or next one could be the intended changes to systems will take 6 months to implement and requires XYZ resources and this much dollar amount. Step number 5, implementation. Implement solutions determined in the improve stage. Comprehend both technical as well as any business process related changes. Implement a comprehensive change management plan to ensure that all stakeholders are appropriately trained. Step 6, control. Verify at periodic intervals that the data is consistent with the business goals and the data rules specified in the definition step. Communicate the data quality metrics and current status to all stakeholders on a regular basis to ensure that data quality discipline is maintained on an ongoing basis across the organization. Now let's look at the people aspect. Data quality is not a one-time project, but a continuous process and requires the entire organization to be data-driven and data-focused. With appropriate focus from the top, data quality management can reap rich dividends to organizations. If you're at the very beginning of your data governance journey, one of the very first steps you will need to take is to identify who in your organization will be part of the data governance team. Appointing the wrong people to key roles can cause the wheels to come off of any well-thought initiative pretty quickly. So getting the basics right and the most effective and suitable team in place from the outset will stand you in good stead for successful data governance implementation. In order to appoint the most appropriate people to these roles, it is important to understand what they involve and what their responsibilities will be. The executive sponsor. The executive sponsor is a senior employee who is charged with coordinating data governance activities and programs. The role of the executive sponsor is to serve as the conduit between the most senior stakeholders and the data governance lead or council, and is authorized to make decisions and take actions. The responsibilities of the executive sponsor can vary depending on the organizational culture, and it depends if they take on a more passive or an active role. If they adopt to take a more active role, the responsibilities include working with the data governance team and taking responsibility for the implementation and ongoing data governance processes. It's their job to make sure the program's goals, data governance plan, and institution strategies are in alignment. Another important role is for them to create the role of the data governance program lead. That is, this could be the chief data officer position. It is also within their remit to secure funding for the program and ensure team members are given suitable time away from the daily duties in order to fulfill their roles within the data governance team. This means the executive sponsor needs to be has to have relative seniority within your organization. If they take a more passive role, their responsibilities generally only include securing funding and ensuring that the data governance deliverables are tied to the business priorities. The data governance lead. The data governance lead is responsible for all aspects of defining and operating the data governance policies and supporting the multiple data domains. They are ultimately responsible for implementing the data governance program vision, promoting the role of data governance, and enforcing policy while following data governance best practices. Traditionally, this role sat under IT and tended to be the responsibility of the Chief Information Officer or the CIO, or even the Chief Technology Officer. There are still quite a few organizations where this is still occurring, but it's no longer recommended. Depending on the size of your organization, its culture, needs, goals, as well as its operating model, the role of the data governance lead could be assigned to the following people. It could be assigned to the data governance director or manager, or maybe the chief data officer. Information security and compliance lead, or whoever the role is given to, its main responsibility is to provide leadership, support, sponsorship, and understanding of data governance to other departments. The Data Governance Council. This is the sole role on this list that doesn't belong to an individual. It belongs to a group of individuals. There are still other groups as part of the data governance organizational hierarchy, but I'll cover these in another presentation. So what is this Data Governance Council? Simply put, it is a governing body which is responsible for the strategic guidance of the data governance program, prioritization for the data governance projects and initiatives, approval of organization-wide data policies and standards, as well as enabling ongoing support, understanding, and awareness of the data governance program. In a sense, this body sets the strategic direction for what the data governance program needs to accomplish and when it needs to accomplish it. In contrast, the data governance leads decide how these items should be accomplished. The data owner. A data owner is a person within your organization that has the authority to make decisions about business term definitions, data quality, accessibility, and retention requirements as they tie to the business needs. Your data owner will also need to know or at least be aware of the regulations, policies, laws governing data privacy, and understand procedures, constraints as these tie to their own area of data ownership, at least in an ideal world. More often, they get advised on these things by the Data Governance Office and Data Governance Council. Generally speaking, when appointing a data owner, you'll want someone that has an in-depth knowledge and a sound business understanding of the data they own. Now we know that there is no one person who can know everything about every bit of data from every department across a single organization. This means you're likely to have a number of data owners within your data governance program, with each responsible for the data within their own area of business. Our data owners are senior managers from different business functional areas. In turn, these business areas are the main stakeholders of their specific data domains. The data steward. Most data stewards come from their respective business departments. You will want a data steward that knows the data and the business needs and rules that govern it, is a good facilitator, and has an analytical mind. Most importantly, your data stewards should be people with a working knowledge of the data and understand how it is used by the business on a day-to-day basis. Simply, your data stewards are invested in the data. For us at TD, our data steward sits under a data owner and is generally appointed by the data owner to work with them or act as their representative in data stewardship domain group meetings. In the data governance hierarchy, they are part of at least one data stewardship domain group. The data owner remains accountable, but they will delegate the day-to-day responsibilities to a data steward. Data stewards often tend to be the subject matter experts, but are still reasonably senior because they must be trusted by their data owner. If you took, for example, a finance department, it is likely that the finance director or its deputy would be the data owner for all the finance data. Then the head of each sub-team within finance would be appointed as a data steward. We also have a concept of a lead data steward, which is responsible for the outcomes of their data stewardship domain group, and they are a conduit between data standards and the Data Governance Council. The data stakeholder. A stakeholder in any data governance program is an individual or a group that could affect or be affected by data governance decisions, processes, policies, standards, etc. The obvious examples of stakeholders are institutional researchers, data managers, data architects, and business intelligence staff. Beyond those who are most closely related to data management roles, other groups need to be viewed as stakeholders as well. For example, a university provost who is looking for at a dashboard report on the percentage of faculty teaching online courses will need to know how faculty is defined and whether adjuncts or lecturers are being included. An effective data governance program has the right information and definitions embedded within the dashboard so that the provost can understand and correctly interpret the data. Data governance programs need to be built to support data consumers in a wide range of groups within the institution. You want a data stakeholder that understands the importance of data and is impacted by it, is collaborative and wants to be engaged, and is a champion in their area of expertise. The data custodian. Our data custodians are typically part of IT departments. This makes it fundamentally different from the roles like the data owner and data stewards, since those are all about the business. Data custodians are usually divided further in their own areas of expertise, such as data modeling, data architecture, and data administration, and they are mainly responsible for maintaining, archiving, recovering, or maybe backing up of data, or maybe preventing data loss or data corruption. You want a data custodian that possesses the necessary technical knowledge, skill, and experience, who follows a good data management best practices, is aware of regulations, policies, and standards governing the data they interact with. Very simply, they are responsible for maintaining data on our systems in accordance with the business requirements. Being a data custodian is all about maintaining data and systems, moving data between systems, aggregating and transforming data in accordance with the business requirements. Data custodians tend to collaborate with data stewards and data stakeholders and can all be part of the same data stewardship domain group. Now let's look at some of the benefits. If you've managed to get this far, the benefits are probably obvious. Data governance means better, leaner, cleaner data, which means better analytics, which means better business decisions, which means better business results. It also means better market positioning, mindshare in your space, good reputation, better profit margin. Everybody likes this one. It's the Giga Principle, garbage in, garbage out. Or as our friend Scott Taylor, CEO of Meta Consulting puts it, it's the GG Principle. Remember, garbage in, garbage everywhere. Of course, definitions are important, but action is more important. Now we know what it is. What do we want to do with it? Here are a few possibilities. Make consistent, confident business decisions based on trustworthy data aligned with all the various purposes for the use of the data assets within the enterprise. Meet regulatory requirements and avoid fines by documenting the lineage of the data assets and access controls related to the data. Improve data security by establishing data ownership and related responsibilities. Define and verify data distribution policies, including the roles and accountabilities of involved both internal and external entities. Use data to increase profits. Data monetization starts with having data that is stored, maintained, classified, and made accessible in an optimal way. Assign data quality responsibilities in order to measure and follow up on data quality. KPIs related to the general performance KPIs within the enterprise. Plan better by not having to cleanse and structure data for each planning purpose. Eliminate rework by having data assets that is trusted, standardized, and capable of serving multiple purposes. Optimize staff effectiveness by providing data assets that meet the desired data quality thresholds. Evaluate and improve by rising the data governance maturity level phase by phase. Acknowledge gains and build on forward momentum in order to secure stakeholders' continuous commitment and a broad organizational support. These are just a few handful of things you can do with great data governance. Bottom line is, we either want to do these things to grow or we have to do them to meet regulatory requirements. Regardless of reason, the end result of not doing these things is the same. If we have bad data, we make bad decisions, and we don't realize that they are bad decisions until later. Now let's look at how data governance is connected to master data management. Data governance is the strategic approach. Master data management, or MDM, is the tactical execution. All enterprise systems need master data management. Master data is the most important data because it is the data in charge. It's about the business nouns, the essential elements of your business, that is your customers, partners, products, services, whatever your business is. That's where the master data lives and breathes. You may have the best governance plan on the planet. Well-governed bad data is still bad data. It's not going to help your business. Whether we realize it or not, we are all in the data business because everything we touch turns to data. Business is transforming from analog to digital. No matter what your product is, data is your product. Business is changing because of data, and data is power. With the right tools, you can harness that power right now. Let's look at some of the best practices. On one hand, you can learn a lot from others who have been on a data governance journey. However, every organization is different, and you need to adopt the data governance practices all the way starting from the unaware maturity phase to the nirvana in the effective maturity phase. Finally, I will end with a collection of 15 short best practices that will apply in general. Start small. As in all aspects of business, do not try to boil the ocean. Strive for quick wins and build up ambitions over time. Set clear, measurable, and specific goals. You cannot control what you cannot measure. Celebrate when goals are met and use this to go for the next win. Define ownership. Without business ownership, a data governance framework cannot succeed. Identify related roles and responsibilities. Data governance is a teamwork with deliverables from all parts of the business. Educate stakeholders. Wherever possible, use business terms and translating the academic parts of the data governance discipline into meaningful content in the business context. Focus on the operating model. A data governance framework must integrate into the way of doing business in your enterprise. Map infrastructure, architecture, and tools. Your data governance framework must be a sensible part of your enterprise architecture and IT landscape and the tools needed. Develop standardized data definitions. It is essential to strike a balance between what needs to be centralized and where agility and localization works best. Identify data domains. Start with the data domain with the best ratio between impact and effort for rising the data governance maturity. Identify critical data elements. Focus on the most critical data elements. Define control measurements. Deploy these in business processes, IT application, and or reporting where it makes most sense. Build a business case. Identify advantages of rising data governance maturity related to a growth, cost savings, risk, and compliance. Leverage metrics. Focus on a limited set of data quality KPIs that can be related to the enterprise. Communicate frequently. Data governance practitioners agree that communication is the most crucial part of this discipline. And last but not the least, it is a practice, not a project. So this brings us to the end of my presentation. I hope it was enjoyable and informative for you. So until next time, stay safe, be well, and goodbye.